Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the JJ Sports Podcast for a very special edition. I'm Josh.
I'm Joey.
Joey, I don't know if you could tell, but if you can or if you can't, I've got the Rangers hat on today. And for all the fans out there, that means something very special. We are doing our first ever specific sport edition that is not baseball without a special guest. I'm sorry we couldn't bring anyone in for you today, but Joey, let's be realistic right now, okay? You and I are both Rangers fans, okay? The Rangers had a lot of hype coming into this year. Last year was their first year really finishing off a rebuild, but not completely done with it. You know, there were still some pieces. There were a lot of prospects to come up still. They didn't have Miller, Kravtsov, Lundqvist playing last year for them. And then, of course, after last year, they drafted Alexi Lafreniere in the first round this past draft. So this year is the year that everyone's saying, though, that they've got their experience. They'll bring those young guys in. There's a lot more hype because last year they made the playoffs, lost in the qualifying round, and now they've got that experience to not necessarily be a great team this year that they'll go deep into the playoffs, but should look at this season or coming into this season should be looking at the standings saying we should be a playoff team. Now, there was a bit shakiness in the first game of the season against the Islanders, but they rebounded off of that. But ever since that first game, there have been their ups and there have been their downs, but there's really not a whole lot that's been great for them so far this season. So today, our topic it's going to be the same topic throughout the entire episode. It's only, it's focusing on this for you guys, and that is what's been going wrong and what has to change for the New York Rangers over the rest of the coming season versus what has been their Achilles heel or what have been their Achilles heels so far throughout the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season. So, Joey, I'm going to bring up the first topic. I want your thoughts on it. Defense was a major issue last year for the Rangers defensively. Scoring, they were the top scoring defense in the entire NHL. This year, right, or let me rephrase it. Last year, though, while the scoring was great, they couldn't defend. They were one of the worst teams defensively. The plus-minus wasn't good. You could really tell that the guys who they brought in, like Jacob Trouba, and guys who they also traded for, like Ryan Lindgren, also weren't really getting it, right? It was more like the guys who are older, and have been playing in the league for a few years that didn't get it. But you saw the younger guys like Adam Fox and Tony DeAngelo kind of step up a little bit. Now, DeAngelo's a separate issue. He's cut, or I don't want to say cut, but he's not playing with the Rangers anymore. He's on their taxi squad, and they're not going to play him anymore. But the defense has gone making massive strides defensively, but the offense isn't there from them anymore. And they still have most of those pieces like Trouba, Fox, and Lindgren. And they brought up Miller, who we both know has been amazing. What's your take on it? What has to change?
First of all, let me just say, I dig that hat. I'm rocking my Rangers hat as well.
No, you're rocking the Yankees hat, but
nope, I'm wearing the Rangers hat. Whoop.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine.
I was wearing it the whole time. Gotcha. Anyway, so my take on it, you said Achilles heel. So we're gonna get to the other ones. But first of all, yeah, this team needs a better defense. Now, last year we had the best scoring offense, the scoring defenseman in the league, and that was a large part due to Tony DeAngelo's breakout season. He scored 53 points or something.
I mean, he scored mid-50s for defenseman. Amazing.
Yeah, that's like unheard of. That's unheard of.
I don't say unheard of. There are a handful of defense like
but those are like the elite. Those are the guys that can play defense. So you don't usually see him in the same conversation as those guys. So what he did was just phenomenal. And suffice it to say, he was playing earlier in the season, but it seemed like he was just not taking the offseason seriously at all. It seemed like he was getting a little sluggish. He was kind of being, a little cocky, kind of like how he used to be. And, nothing helps you more than winning, and they weren't doing so much of that, so he wasn't doing well. And we all know what happened the first game. Stupid penalty. He got pissed. He slammed the glass door.
Got benched.
Later on, the whole fight, and then the removal.
Smith played better than him in that second game.
So, yeah. But definitely a good bright spot is bringing up K'Andre Miller, because that dude is awesome. He already got his first goal, which was a rocket, and he seems like him and Trouba are going to be a great pairing for years to come. When Trouba's healthy, of course. He got injured recently, so it's exciting to see who he's going to.
Well, and Miller's healthy. Trouba's still playing. Miller's the one who's out right now.
That's what I meant. Yeah, I'm saying. Yeah, so it's just who are they going to have tonight is a big question. But yeah, and also you still want to talk about defense. Anthony Boteto, what an amazing pickup for this team, because I know he's not supposed to like be a huge offensive spark, but he did have that one goal, which was amazing. I don't care what anyone says. He went all the way to the side, all the way around the net.
I believe he made top 10 goals of the week. I think
that was a great goal. It was phenomenal, awesome. Not even because of what it means, because he's a New Yorker. It's his first goal in like 3 years, but also just because like the goal was so nice. Like he just went through 2 defenders. Nope. Like it was just nice.
His favorite team growing up. He never pictured
like, yeah, it's just awesome. Hometown
MSG
team.
for the Rangers.
And big goal. So yeah. I mean, there are other problems, so we'll get to that. That's the first.
There are other problems. So anyway, but I do want to just touch on the fact and say what has gone right from last year's defense to this year's defense, because surprisingly enough, we would have thought the defense would be generally, the suspect of what's making the Rangers not play so well or why they're not playing well. The problems aren't on defense, though. They're on offense. The defense has made massive strides. And we mentioned, obviously, that Keandre Miller's been brought up. Adam Fox is a year into it. D'Angelo's gone. Maybe he was, maybe there was something because his defense wasn't great, but he was definitely, a huge part of that team because of his offense that he contributed defensively. And he'd make defensive plays here and there. He'd step up, but he just wasn't consistent at all defensively. Jacob Trouba had a very good defensive year last year, but he had an awful offensive year for comparing to what they brought him in for. They traded for him and they signed him to that, that long-term extension because they expected him to replicate in New York what he did with Winnipeg. And he just didn't do that in his first year. His first couple of weeks, he looked pretty damn good. Scored a goal in his first game. He had some excellent pass plays. He was great at creating the rush and bringing the puck coast to coast. And we've seen guys like Keandre Miller and Adam Fox start to do that more often. That's what I love about seeing this. But all that aside, the defense itself, without scoring and everything, has made massive strides. Miller, you see sticking with Crosby and Ovechkin. Jacob Trouba was blocking shots left and right. His offense could still contribute a lot more, but as long as he's defending, because the defense isn't there to score. It's there to help you play defense, defend the rush, stop opportunities and breakouts from coming your way, then that's fine. He's doing his job as a defenseman. As for Ryan Lindgren, he's been getting better. And someone we didn't talk about yet for the defense, Libor Hayek. I know that there's a lot of controversy surrounding him. Oh, he shouldn't be in the Rangers lineup, or they should trade him. He's inconsistent. He's not inconsistent because he's an inconsistent player on the ice. He's inconsistent because he hasn't ever stayed healthy. Now that he's staying healthy and he's showing us what he was, the reason he was drafted so high originally by the Tampa Bay Lightning and then traded over to the Rangers in the trade. I believe that was part of the Ryan McDonough and JT Miller trade.
That's correct.
That the reason why they wanted him specifically, and he has really been good for them. Obviously, he's making, as we would say, rookie mistakes. He's not a rookie anymore. He's been in the Rangers organization for the last 2 years or so, but he really hasn't seen a lot of ice time because he hasn't been able to stay on the ice. And now that he's able to stay on the ice, he's showing us his potential. He's showing us he's got a lot of upside as a defenseman. He makes smart plays. He communicates well. He does just about everything. He's a third-line defensive pairing, and that's not terrible to start him there after the amount of time he's seen, because he hasn't seen so much time. So obviously you're not going to put him within your top 4 defensemen. But if he keeps playing the way he's playing, I wouldn't be surprised to see a change. The downside on the defense now is they are battling injuries. As you mentioned, Keandre Miller, he's out with a lower body injury right now. Jack Johnson, a guy who hasn't really played amazing, but he's serviceable. He still provides something to the defensive aspect of that team as more of a defensive defenseman. He's been out for a while. And I don't know exactly what the timeline is for Jack Johnson, but Keandre Miller should be back within the next couple of days, as early as even tonight, maybe. David Quinn said in an interview recently when asked about both Panarin and Miller. They were both out with similar injuries against Boston. With that being said, though, I think the defense has made strides, and I think that as long as they keep doing what they're doing right now defensively, they should be in good shape. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, okay? this is not really an Achilles heel, but something, in terms of what they should do going forward or how they should manage it going forward. And that's the goaltending situation, Joey. So I want to hear your thoughts. I'm just going to quickly ask you, though, do you think that the Rangers are at a point right now? Because Shesterkin has been seeing more of the bulk of play right now as the starter. And I know some of that probably had to do with the fact that Georgiev got into that stint with Tony DeAngelo, but that's already a couple weeks old at this point. Shesterkin's still seeing more time. So do you think the Rangers are starting to fall into that mentality of Shesterkin should be the number one over Georgiev, or Georgiev should be the number one guy over Shesterkin, or that they're still going to stay equally equally as parts of this team in terms of 50-50 play, and there's not a set starting goaltender?
I don't know. It's a very complicated answer because if you think about it, Shesterkin probably thrived a lot last year because of who he was backing up and eventually took the reins from. He took it from Hank, the King. Like, I feel like even though Hank wasn't himself, like he wasn't the same, the fact that
He was still
the fact that he was there just might have given Igor all the confidence he needed. And I feel like now that he's not there, he's lost his confidence. That could just be like a grabbing out of nowhere, but like that's just what I feel because he doesn't seem like when we play the Islanders, it feels like when Igor's in there, we can't win. But when Georgiev's in there, I feel like we almost always win. Like he has a great record against the Islanders. It's like what 5-1 or something like that. Like he dominates them. So I don't know how to say this. I guess keep trying with Igor, but like when you're down the stretch and you're playing like big teams for the playoff spot, I would go Georgiev. He's been in this league a long time. Not as long as others, but like he's been there much longer than Igor has. So like let the guy with the experience take the reins for the bigger games, Don't try to ruin Igor's momentum though, because if you keep switching off every time, no one's gonna get any confidence, no one's gonna get consistency. It's not gonna get a good streak going. So I would say try to give Igor a good streak, but get in Georgiev for important games, like the really, really important games. The Bostons, the Islanders, the Flyers. Get him in for those,
Yeah.
That's all I could say on that.
I definitely agree with you, but I also do want to say that as much as Igor Shesterkin has not been winning games for the Rangers, can we be realistic here? He plays out of his mind against the Devils. If it weren't for him, the game could have easily been 3 or 4-0 in the first period. He was the reason the Rangers went into that second period tied with the New Jersey Devils somehow, and the score was 0-0. He's an absolutely fabulous goaltender. He's still young. I know it's not super young. He's not a prospect who just got drafted in, like Alexei Lafreniere, Kakko, or Jack Hughes, or any of those guys who have just gotten drafted and want to come up right away. He's 24, I think, 25 already, and he's in his rookie year. Now, he spent some time playing in the KHL, and he spent most of last year playing in the AHL before he got called up around mid-year by the Rangers. And obviously with the pandemic shortened season, that's why it was cut short by the pandemic. It wasn't set at first to be a shorter season, that he didn't see as much time, because had the season played out, he would have spent the majority of the year in the NHL. And he was fabulous. He was 10-2 last year. And it wasn't even just the teams, it wasn't like the weakest teams that he was beating, because he beat Toronto. They were a strong team last year. He beat I don't know if he played Washington last year. He beat who else did he beat last year? He beat the Avalanche last year at MSG. He beat who was the third team? I'm pretty sure he beat Vegas. I'm pretty sure that he beat Vancouver. Those were two very strong teams last year. They were both in the playoffs. Vegas went to the conference finals. He beat Dallas last year. They were the Stanley Cup finals runner-ups. He beat a lot of very strong teams last year. So it's not even just to say that he had 10 wins and they were against the Kings, Sharks, Devils, and Sabres. You know what I mean? Like, he played against very strong teams last year, and he showed that he was capable of sticking with that. Now, this year, they haven't really given him a chance to win, really just minus one of the Pittsburgh games, which was the last one they played when they were down 1-0. They scored 3 unanswered, and you had that last second goal by Panarin. He just shot at the net. He tried to get Ryan Strome the point, but it didn't go. That was really the only game you could say. That was by far his best game of the year from start to finish. He gave up the early goal, but he was locked in from then on. He let it set in. He knew he made a mistake, and he corrected everything. He fixed everything. His team was there to help him out, and whenever they weren't there to help him out, which was very rarely the case in that game the rest of the way, he was dialed in. He was locked in. There was that, and then you had him beat Washington earlier this year, and he from the start of the game, you saw Alex Ovechkin. He had a one-timer he was wide open for. He had a breakaway less than a minute into the game. Shesterkin stoned him cold all night long, except for that one wrist shot that, let's be realistic. We mentioned it before. Ovechkin's going to find a way to score goals. He's like 7th all time now in goal scoring in NHL history. He's going to find a way to beat you. Even the mighty fall, even they're going to crack him. So Shesterkin really had an outstanding game there. Those are really the only 2 games, though, he's been given a chance to win. His offense stepped up, got him a lead, and felt comfortable playing with the lead. But we've talked about it before, how offense is now this team's issue because they're losing a lot of one-goal games. Really, they lost to Boston twice by 1, once in overtime, once they were shut out. They lost to Pittsburgh by 1 in overtime. They lost by 1 to them in a shootout. They lost by 1 to them in regulation. Those are the 3 times. They haven't lost by more than 1 to Pittsburgh all season long. And you could argue that they should have won all 4 games because the 4th one they won, but the 3 prior, they also should have. Now, I'm not at a point to say Shesterkin should be the starter, but I feel like Shesterkin should still be the starter. Georgiev, I think, should be getting the start tonight against the Philadelphia Flyers. They've gone with Shesterkin a lot. I think Georgiev's gotten some time off, and the Flyers are a good team. But but Georgiev tends to play very, very well against all the teams in his division, most notably the Islanders. But I don't think he got a shot at the Flyers last year. I think they went with Lundqvist and Shesterkin last year in 4 meetings. So I think this is Georgiev's turn because they couldn't beat the Flyers last year. Give him a shot. If he could beat them, then great. You know that you've got your goaltender you're going with against Philly next time. Okay, so that wraps it up for the goalie. Joey, I think that we need to talk about the most obvious struggle with the Rangers right now, though, and that's their offense. So why don't you break it down what you're seeing from them right now?
I mean, first and foremost, we know it's a problem, but let's get one thing clear here, okay? This is really important. There's such thing as a team that doesn't try, or a team that tries, but they can't even get shots off. That is not the problem with this team, okay? We know what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with Artemi Panarin, a top 3 Hart candidate last year. Okay, Mika Zibanejad.
He's ranked the best winger in the NHL coming into this year,
which is crazy because Alex Ovechkin is in this league, so that means a lot. Okay,
Kucherov, Pastrnak, and all those guys, they've all been playing a little longer than Panarin has.
He has like half a shelf life of half of their careers, and he's done like so much in like so little time. It's like amazing. You have Mika Zibanejad, who led the league in goals per game before the pandemic. He scored a crazy amount of goals in like less games than most people do because he was injured, right? You have Chris Kreider, who you love a lot. I kind of like him. He's a big guy. Definitely a guy you want on your team for power plays. Just he's like leads the league in like screen
goals.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah, and screen goals.
Screens or deflections in front.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's his thing, man. That's like also he's like one of the fastest guys in the league. Like it's crazy. He's really fast. Then you got obviously Ryan Strome, who I think is awesome. I actually really like him a lot.
He's built some great chemistry with Panarin.
Him and Panarin have amazing chemistry. You have Pavel Buchnevich, who last year was like having a cold streak. This year he's actually looking pretty good. He seems like he's doing like the best on offense. Like out of the top 6, he's doing the best on it. He's great. He had a 2-goal game recently. By the way, those were knockouts. Like he just shot that thing like crazy. You know what I'm talking about? Last game, that was beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. You got Kakko, obviously, and you got Lafreniere.
He's noticeable.
And then you got a bottom 6, who I used to always be worried about. But now I'm actually like, this is the problem. The problem is our bottom 6 is playing better than our top 6. Our bottom 6 is the only thing keeping us in games right now. Brendan Lemieux scoring. Kevin Rooney scoring. He's technically not bottom 6 anymore, but Colin Blackwell was helping a lot. A lot.
Yeah, I think he's only played, just a note for Blackwell real quick, Blackwell's only played in like 5 or 6 games, I think, because he's been out with injury, but he has 6 points already, or 5 points already. That's crazy.
It's insane.
It's not like he's getting like 3 points a game. He scored his first goal in the first game he played with the Rangers against Pittsburgh. He had a goal against the Buffalo Sabres. Sorry, not a goal. He had 2 assists against the Sabres. He assisted on Miller's first goal and Lafreniere's first NHL goal. Both of those guys. He had a goal against the Devils the other night.
That was a nice goal, by the way.
Noticeable.
Oh my God, that was.
And he's noticeable. Also, it's not even like anytime he's not on the ice scoring, he's making plays happen. He opens up the ice because this is a guy who's never been more than like a fourth or third liner at best in his NHL career, and he's playing against the top pairing defenseman now because they've decided to move him up to the top 6 right now. He's been that effective. So yeah, say what you want about him, but as David Quinn said, you gotta let the eye test do the you gotta let the eye test do the talking sometimes.
Right. And then you obviously, before he was injured, was doing actually pretty good underratedly was Filipino. Dude was just finding chances to score. He was scoring at an exponential rate. Even Julian Gauthier.
Gauthier scored his first
he just scored his first goal. That's promising. That's really promising. So listen, the 2 problems we really have is number 1, like people keep getting injured like Panarin. When Panarin's injured, I have less expectations for us to win. I just do. I feel like we live and die by Panarin. At least the offense does. Like, I remember last year we played the Islanders 4 times. We beat them 3 times, and the only time we lost, he wasn't in that game. I feel like that made a huge difference. Just him being there.
And I'm pretty sure he had points in every game as well. He had a point on the first one they played when the Kreider goal with less than 30 seconds left. He had the secondary assist on that goal by Kreider. He fed Zibanejad a shot. It was a rebound. That was the second game. Sorry. In the first game, he had a 4-point
blowout, like he had 2 goals.
First game, he had a 4-point night. He had 2 assists and 2 goals. And in the third one, he had 2 assists. He had a goal and assist. He had a goal, which gave the Rangers the lead.
And that rocket to Zibanejad.
And they had the pass to Zibanejad with 3 guys on him. So you're making a good point.
Right. And then the other thing is the 2 guys I really need to are Kako and Lafreniere. It's not good. Like, I'm not trying to put too much pressure on Lafreniere because let's be honest, last year, look at all the hype Jack Hughes had. He was god awful. He was terrible. Okay. He was bad. And now he's looking pretty good. Okay. So maybe Lafreniere just needs.
And same with Kako also. Like, not to rip on Kako. He was definitely not up to hype last year. And this year, even though he might not have all the stats, you're noticeable. Like Joe Micheletti mentioned in the broadcast the other night against New Jersey, he was the best forward on the ice. I know he didn't score a goal. He didn't have an assist. But look at the chances he's creating. He's on the forecheck. He's making passes. He's going to the net. And he said, when you're willing to start getting your skates in the crease, when you're willing to go to the net, that's when you really start to gain confidence. And he's gaining confidence.
Yeah, I mean, him and Laff are having a million shots. Like, that's why I'm upset, because it's not like they're not trying. They're trying so hard. Him and Lafreniere have so many shots. I remember Lafreniere recently, like, he tried to shoot, I think it was Boston, and he hit the post. I was like, man. I was like,
that chance in the slot. I remember I was like on the highlights seeing, oh my gosh, like I saw it, like
it was
thinking, oh my gosh, like
close.
It's a second.
Like, a meter to the right, it goes in. I was just like, oh man, that would have been so nice, And Mika Zibanejad has had so many chances. He got robbed by I think it was Tuukka, right?
Yeah, first game.
I was like, oh come on, like it's so close. It's that close. Like it was big. It was like it was open a little bit, and I thought he had it. And I was like, oh, like these guys are getting so many chances. It's just not fair. Like those 3 are getting the most chances I've ever seen. It's just not fair. So I don't know what to do here, but I gotta give at least there are positives, right? Miller got his first goal, Laff got his first goal, Gauthier got his first goal, and also just on a side note, the penalty kill has been amazing.
It's been excellent.
Sadly, they broke the streak last game, but it had to happen. It just had to happen.
You're not going to beat everyone. That's just the reality.
It's just impossible. It's a power play. You're at disadvantage. It's just statistically impossible that you're gonna prevail every time. But come on, would they stop like 20 straight times a penalty?
22, I believe. I believe it was 21 coming into the game.
That's insane.
Had one that they killed and one that they gave it up. Now, I do want to point out, Kreider also said, I don't mean to cut you off, but this is just a quick note on the penalty kill that Kreider said after the game, I feel personally, like why that there are penalties that should have been called. And I thought there were 2 when I watched the game. But at the same time, he said, I'm not going to use that as an excuse because 2 things. 1, there are no excuses. And 2, they could argue the same thing, saying that there were penalties that were missed. I do want to point out, though, you mentioned the streak was broken. But look at one thing that most of those penalties, not all of them, had in common that the Rangers had killed off in 22 straight. And that was that they had Mika Zibanejad out there, who took the penalty that the Devils scored the power play on. it was Mika Zibanejad. And he's a big part of that penalty kill, whether he's going to score shorthanded goals or create space and shorthanded opportunities and rush, or whether he's just going to just be solid defensively and not allow passes to get through to certain players in the lanes when he's defending in his own zone, when the other team has possession of the puck on the power play. He's always on it. And even if the scoring's not showing, then his overall defensive game as an offenseman is definitely showing, because you don't seem to see him on the ice for too much of that. His plus minus rating, is not terrible at all. It's just, he was known to be a scorer last year. You mentioned the best goals average per game at the end of the season. That was cut short by the pandemic. And he has not even like 3 goals yet this year. It's crazy to think that.
I mean, yeah, like I just feel bad for him, because I feel like getting the virus and everything and just coming off an injury, like he's been shell shocked, it's not fair to him. I don't know. I know that once the offense clicks, whenever that happens, I'm not sure it's happening yet, but when it does, this team will be unstoppable because this team has too much talent to fail. It's like, and it's not that kind of talent where like, oh, I'm the point guard or I'm the ball handler it's not like that. You have all roles filled out.
It's not like the talent on paper. It's not just talent.
Yeah, it's not just like a super team. It's actually a
well-structured team. Saw them click.
Think about it. Ryan Strome, whoever thought that was going to work 2-3 years ago? We thought this guy was like a bust or something, Pavel Buchnevich, no one ever heard of him before. Like he was like our draft pick like 6 years ago. He wasn't anything until like 2-3 years ago, but now he's hitting his stride. He's primed for a breakout season, and we got number 2 and number 1 in the last 2 years, like Kako and Leff. Like we are primed for a good season, man. I think we deserve it. We deserve it, man.
Yeah, so that really sums it up for everything that's been going wrong for the Rangers. So let's get back to what they could do going forward. And this is obviously going to be the quicker part of the segment for each thing. So we're going to do the 3 things: defense, goaltending, and offense. Joey, what do you think the Rangers have to do in order to keep up? Because we mentioned the defense has made major strides and they've been excellent so far. They've been the bright spot of this team. It's been the offense that has been killing them. So what do you think has to happen going forward defensively in order for them to maintain their defensive style of play and how effective they play?
I would say, obviously, you keep Lindgren, Fox, and you keep Miller when he comes back with Trouba. But the thing about Hayek is, you a great point, man. He's doing great. The problem is that defense is always just someone's always getting screwed over, and it's usually Libor because of the injury and stuff. So usually when someone comes back from injury, like Jack Johnson or Brendan Smith, they will get replaced. I would say, keep things as they are, don't keep screwing over Libor Hayek. Keep him there. But if you are going to switch him with Brendan Smith. Keep Jack Johnson out of the thing, only for penalty kills.
Yeah, Brendan Smith he's been pretty good for them.
Yeah, so I would say switch out Smith with Hayek or Boteto, whichever one you think you're willing to expend or expendable. That's defense.
Yeah, so my take is very much the same. Obviously, Lindgren and Fox make an excellent pair. They were pairs for most of the season last year when Fox wasn't playing with D'Angelo. That was kind of something that shifted over because they felt there was too much offense, not enough defense in that pairing. When they moved Ryan Lindgren, who's way more of a defensive defenseman than an offensive defenseman, that's when that defense started to come together a little bit more. They gelled a little bit more together. They were more solid. There wasn't much that got by them at that point when they made that switch. I love Lindgren and Fox together. Do I think they're always the top line to start the game for the Rangers? Not necessarily. I think that they definitely could be in most games, but I also like the way Miller and Trouba play defensively. And I honestly think, I know this is going to sound crazy because Miller comes in as the rookie. Trouba's been the guy who's accomplished himself as a defenseman. He's had an excellent offensive career prior to his time that he signed with the Rangers in Winnipeg. But Miller's being the guy who's showing more offensive upside right now. I know it's hard to think. Trouba's been in the league for the last 4 or 5 years. Miller's a rookie. He hasn't played more than 7 or 8, maybe 9 to 10 games this year because of his time out now. But Miller has been right on the money, and I love to see when Keandre Miller. You don't see him; he's not going to do this. Every single time he's got the puck in his own zone, and there's a little bit of space. But I love to see personally when he leads the rush. He's a guy who is not scared. He's playing with confidence, and Joe Micheletti made a point to say that when you're willing to stay with the puck and you're willing to be patient in your own zone, that shows confidence. And every time he does that, I've got this feeling that I know he's going to get his job done and he's not going to buckle under pressure. And he's doing that. I think that a lot of people were a little too quick to criticize him for wanting to stay in college for an extra year or two in order so that because they were saying he was a very high prospect. He was a first round draft pick. And a lot of people were quick to criticize him, saying, he should have come up. He would have developed better. I think that if anything, he's doing even better than he would have. We don't know I would have been, but, we've seen it with guys like Kakko and Hughes who have come up right away as top drafted prospects who didn't hit the ground running right away. And they could have used a little more time to develop. They're both doing good and a lot better than they would have, coming into this year now compared to the way they did last year. But Miller, I think, hit right on the money with his decision. As for Hayek and Boteto, I like that line the way it is right now. I don't think there's any need to do anything. Obviously, Brendan Smith, this doesn't have to do with that line. Brendan Smith's been a lot better this year so far than what he was last year defensively. And even so, he's making plays where he might not exactly get a point or have the shot on goal or open it up, but he's breaking up plays in the neutral zone very well. And especially most notably, he's creating offensive chances every here and there. We know in the second game of the season, he played for Tony DeAngelo, and he broke up the pass. He had the breakaway pass to Artemi Panarin, who scored his first of the season and the first goal. Not the first goal of the season for the Rangers as a whole, but the first goal at MSG against the Islanders. So I like to see that from him. I think that Smith is a guy you can alternate with one of those two guys in Boteto or Hayek, but I don't think that you should be breaking those two up and leaving them out. I think that maybe one of them has to move up instead, if that makes any sense. I like where the defense is at, and I can kind of honestly, I could take the way their the offense is being contributed to by the defense right now because they're not scoring as much as they did last year. But that was a partially different group. They had DeAngelo last year. They don't have him this year. They didn't have Miller last year. They've got Miller this year. So I like where they are with that right now. I'll accept the way their defense is playing from an offensive standpoint because Fox is still great. Miller's great. I think Trouba will have a bounce back year. And I think that Boteto and Hayek, I know it doesn't seem like they're contributing much to the offense, but trust me, they're contributing a lot more than I think a lot of people realize. In terms of the goalie, Joey, I'm going to keep this real short and simple for my analysis. I don't think there's much that needs to change. I just think that we need to see more of an official decision in time. I feel like a lot of times Igor Shesterkin or Alexander Georgiev are kind of like game time decisions because the last two games, David Quinn has decided to go with Igor Shesterkin. But I feel like he's almost overplaying him right now. And I would love for Shesterkin to be the starter after what we saw from him last year. And we know his potential and how he's played despite losing games because we mentioned the offense doesn't really give him a chance to win. They don't score goals for them. And the defense isn't going to be able to score goals for them when they're defending the whole game. So I would like to see a little more even play. I feel like Shesterkin's been getting a little too – I don't want to think it's too much, but I think it's too much for him, unfortunately, to handle right now. I'd like to see Georgiev in there a little bit more often. So I think if they start spreading it out a little more 50-50, that might – who knows? They could use a change of scenery, I think. So as well as Shesterkin's played, it's clearly not well enough for them to win, with them scoring one goal. And you can't expect them to throw a shutout every single game. So I think – if he said from the start of the season, there's not going to be a set starter and backup goalie. It's going to be a 50-50 role. Shesterkin said it and Georgiev said it. They all three of them, and Benoit Allaire made it clear also. He's the goaltending coach on that team. So for them to say that, I just feel like they're not keeping up to what they said with their word before the season, saying it was going to be more of a 50-50 role than a clear starter and clear backup. So I'd like to see more even play from both of them. What do you think?
I already said my thoughts beforehand, keep Igor in the streaks, bulk of games, put Georgie in when the games matter the most.
For the matchups that matter.
The ones that he always wins, like the Islanders, You know,
Right.
even try him out with against Boston and Philly. You know, like why not? Because we haven't beaten them with Igor, so try him with
Yeah,
Georgie. Like it can't hurt.
that's true. Right. Yeah. I would, like I said, I don't know who it officially is yet, but the game is in a little less than 2 hours, and I'm expecting Alexander Georgiev to be the starting goalie tonight for the Rangers.
I hope
Um,
so. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like Shesterkin, imagine he's played excellent hockey against the Devils. He was amazing. Like we mentioned, that he was the whole reason the Rangers weren't down 5-0 in the first period. It could have very well been that way, but he kept him in the game. He gave him a chance to win, and ultimately they didn't. But look, you gotta score goals to win. You can't not score
Yeah,
goals
it's not on
to
him.
expect to win the game.
It's
Yeah,
not.
it's not all on him. It's just not. In terms of the offense, I'll let you go first. I just took goalies. So what do
Where do
you
I
think?
start, man? Where do I start? David Quinn, if you're listening to this, which you probably aren't, get your act together, man. Your lines are terrible. You don't know what you're doing here. Why are your bottom six guys scoring more than your top six guys? Are they unmotivated? Are they not grasping your schemes like for offense? Like what is happening here? I feel like maybe we have to get rid of KZB, just tear it apart because it doesn't seem like it's working, They are getting shots, but like they're not really scoring. I don't think there was that one goal last week prior to Bushnevich, right?
That
But I
was
don't
last
know,
game.
man. What?
That was last game, and then against Boston also. I'm pretty sure they didn't actually.
No, they didn't. Remember,
Yeah,
Zibanejad got
both
robbed by
Gauthier,
Raff.
yeah, both Gauthier and Rooney had the goals in that game.
Exactly. Our bottom. So you got to shake up the lines.
Against Washington, they put it together. Against Washington, they were good.
But against stronger teams, you just need a much more balanced attack, and you just don't have it. So you have to switch out KZB. You have to take someone. I don't know who. Maybe Kreider, maybe Bushnevich. Bring up Laugh or Kako. It depends if Artemi Panarin's in. Point is, you got to switch it up. Keep the bottom exactly as they are because they're perfect. They're perfect. Okay? That's number one. Number two, your power play's also messed up. Like, you got to fix your power play setups because you have too many guys who want to pass and not enough guys who want to shoot, Like, it's just not working out. Right? Although I do love how Fox, when he was doing
he's been an excellent quarterback. He's been an excellent power play quarterback.
That's another thing. Keep that. Keep that the way. I know that's probably why you brought Trouba in. I don't care. You have a second unit, put him on that.
He is.
Yeah, so yeah, keep Fox there. Maybe put Laugh on the first unit. I don't know, like give him like a real high. What? Yeah, I'm saying like who knows what could happen, Because it's just the way it's working is just not. It's not enough. And third of all, and this is most important, I don't know how. I don't even know how to fix this, but like it seems like we're not winning a lot of faceoffs the way we used to.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna touch. They've been getting a lot better at that recently.
So like I noticed it's getting better like a little bit, like slowly. So whatever you're doing, do more of that. I don't know what you're doing, but do more of that because what you did beforehand was atrocious. That's all I can really say on the offense.
All right, so I'm going to touch on most of what you said, but just to point out specifics, what I'd like to see specifically, yeah, like the KZB line, that's just not working out so well. You have guys who are performing well individually, but they're not playing well as a team, and that's something they were so effective with last year. That line, as the season went on, got better and better, especially late in the games, though. You see that they're not pushing like it's not even just like late in the game or only for one period. They're not really pushing at all. You see more individual chances from Pavel Buchnevich right now and Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, and you see them setting up and pulling together as a team. I'd like to see that line broken down. What I would think would be a good move is if you could get a guy like Kaapo Kakko right now who's playing some of the best hockey we've seen him play. I know not statistically, but the way he plays and his effectiveness and the opportunities and chances he creates and how noticeable he is on the ice for good reasons, obviously, that he's the number one right winger on the team right now. I don't know if Buchnevich plays right wing or left wing. I think he plays both. But I think you can alternate. I'd like to see Kako on the top line for this game because last game they brought Buchnevich back onto the top line with Kreider and Zibanejad at the end of the game. He didn't start the line with them. But I'd want to see Kako on the top line as the right winger. I'd want to see Panarin on the top line as the left winger. And I'd want to see Zibanejad as the top center. And if not Zibanejad, then I would want to see Ryan Strome because we know – and like that's basically moving their second. That's basically moving their second to their first because Kako, Strome, and Panarin is that second line right now. But who knows? Like maybe Zibanejad could use a spark from a guy like Artemi Panarin, who's more accomplished than Zibanejad. Zibanejad's great, but Panarin has just been.
Well, that's the question, right? That's what we said last year. Remember, we tried that, and David Quinn made the argument that while it would be great to have your top three players all on the same line, because that's basically, like a power play, he argued that
it doesn't keep it.
They don't get to play. They don't get to play the whole game. They only can play as much as they play.
Right.
There's three other lines. So we're going to develop a system where it's a pick your poison line. Are you going to go against
it? And I can understand that.
Which is why Strome had a great year because he was playing against number two centers, There weren't that many great number two centers he faced off against. Obviously you have your Backstroms, your Malkins, and your David Krejcis, but there's not that much after that, So that's, and then another thing is that's the only way it would work. By the way, if you put Panarin on the top line, it would only work if he was with Strome because David Quinn's going to say the same thing about the pick your poison line, and he's only going to okay such a thing if Zibanejad's not on the same line as Panarin.
Right. Fine.
And Panarin and Strome have that crazy chemistry. I don't even think even if it would be different.
Right. Even if you
I don't even think he'd want to play with anyone else.
Right. I can understand that.
I just think he's developed such chemistry with him. He just doesn't want to ruin that,
Right.
And the only sad part about that is that Mika would have to be the number two center, and I think he's definitely could be the number one center. I really think he earned it. He's not playing well, and that's one of the sad things. And the other sad thing is that Kako and Lafreniere cannot both be the top six players. It's just there's no room, unless you bring down Buchnevich or Kreider or something. But it's see, when all these teams got their stars, right? When they got Crosby, when they got Ovechkins, those teams were terrible. They weren't
and they all changed it.
They weren't. Yeah, they put those guys automatically on the first line because they didn't need any. There was no one prioritized over them, but the Rangers weren't in that position. They were kind of mediocre, but really they were playoff teams. So they were good enough they didn't need the first overall pick. But now that they have him, they need to play him. So it's really tough. It's really tough when you have these top prospect players that are in your system ready to play, and you can't play both of them in your top six. It's a real damn shame. It bothers me.
I want to say, anyway, just to reconfigure the lines the rest of the way, then I'd say maybe not Kako. Maybe if you could put a guy like Pavel Buchnevich on that line instead of Kaapo Kakko, because Kaapo Kakko seems to be supporting himself pretty well right now. If you have a guy like Kaapo Kakko play with Zibanejad and Kreider, then that would work. And maybe that could be your first line, and you could have Panarin, Strome, and Buchnevich on your second line. Then I love the way the bottom six is playing right now. You shouldn't be changing that up. But if there were two players I would have to say who have to get moved up in a change of scenery, then I would like to see it be either Phil DiGiuseppe, who's been amazing. He's been forechecking. He's got speed. He's not a very skilled player. He's a gritty player, but he gets to the areas, and he's not afraid to go up against anyone.
He's a Jesper Foss type guy.
Yeah, you saw him go up against John Carlson and Dmitry Orlov, Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Lauzon, or Brandon Carlo. You saw him go up against Nick Leddy and Ryan Pulock. You see him go up against everyone. Tonight, we're going to see him go up against Justin Braun and Ivan Provorov, and that's the top defensive line on that Flyers team. We're going to see it all. We're going to see it all season long, and we've seen it so far. I don't expect it to change. I want him either moved up because he's an energetic player, not from a skill standpoint where he's a game breaker. Everything's going to happen. He is the type of guy who can change a game with momentum by bringing the right mentality to your team. He's more of an enforcer type player than he is a super skilled type player, if you ask me. He's a physical guy, and he works hard. And if he lays a hit on someone in the corner, right, whether it's right after the puck or trying to forecheck, then that's going to change. He gets his team energized. He's going to fire his team up, and they're going to get going because we've seen it happen already. And that's how they got back into the New Jersey game this past Tuesday, which they ultimately lost. But still, He gave him a chance. He was creating, and he was with Kako and Lafreniere. And they were great, but I think Kako deserves more recognition and should be playing in the top 6, as I mentioned. The other guy would be Colin Blackwell. He's been out with injuries, but whenever he's been on the ice, we mentioned he's been outstanding. Now, if you don't want to break those lines up because of the way they're playing, then I totally get that. I have no opposition to that as well. But if you have to move one of those guys up from the bottom 6, I'd want it to either be Colin Blackwell or Phil just said. That being said, what has to change going forward? Other than all that, I know that we didn't touch on this, or you kind of touched on it as if it wasn't an issue, but I think it actually is an issue, Joey. And you mentioned the shots aren't the problem. I think it is a problem because I know they finished with 30 plus shots a game, but can we be realistic? They don't shoot until late in games. I think we can both recognize that. If you notice what the Devils were doing, just this is the most recent example I've got because it's the last game they played and it happened flat out, was the fact that whenever the Devils didn't have anything, when they were trying to enter through the neutral zone, they had nothing. They either put the puck in deep, get your forwards there, get a forecheck going, right? Don't try to string passes up the ice, right? Or throw the puck on net. Because even from long distance, I know it happens once in a blue moon, but we've seen you put the puck on net, good things happen, even from beyond your own zone, right? We've seen Drew Doughty and PK Subban both have missiles, and somehow they've snuck through the 5-hole or crazy bounces and deflections on goalies. It happens. It happens to the best. Like, it just, you're not going to, even the mighty fall, it's possible. It's not likely, super, super unlikely for it to happen, but it could happen. You put the puck on net, good things happen. That's just the reality of it. The Rangers pass too much, in my opinion. Whenever they don't have anything going through the neutral zone into the other zone, I feel like they pass too much and they try to pass their way out of it, and it doesn't work. And when they don't have anything, once they're in the attacking zone, they try to pass out of it, or they dump and make changes. I want to see shots. At least if you're going to dump, fine. Dump it on net, though. Don't put it in the corner, right? Unless you're absolutely winded and can't afford, you need the positioning, you need the puck to go around to the other side, so they have to chase it so you can get there, fine. But if you don't have anything, we saw the Devils do it. That's why Shesterkin, he was the starting goalie, had to make so many saves in the first period because the Devils had so many broken plays. All they did was eventually just pound the net with shots and crash for rebounds. And Shesterkin handled it well in the first period, but it was almost too overwhelming that he could have ended up giving up 4 or 5 goals. I'd like to see more of that from the Rangers. They shoot a lot. They turned it around. They were down 7 shots going into the second period against the Devils, and then they were up 7 shots at the end of the second, so they were evened up. And then they ended up with the shot advantage at the end of the game, but they didn't win the game. Part of that comes because of the fact that even when they have opportunities, they don't shoot. I feel like they pass too much. Another thing that happened with that just to touch another example, Kaapo Kakko and Alexi Lafreniere had a 2-on-1 on Friday night's game. And Kaapo Kakko, instead of either passing or shooting right away, tried to stick handle his way toward the goalie, it was Halak on the second night. And yeah, he had him beat. The problem was he didn't shoot. And by the time he was going to shoot, you had a defenseman coming back. I think it was Brandon Carlo who got back and lifted his stick or got a stick on the puck so Kakko didn't get a clean shot off. He didn't score. Rangers ended up losing that game by 1 goal. It was 1-0 final. It's not even so. It's not even like they got a point out of that, which brings me to the last thing. And at least when they lose, Joey, we know that most of the time, not most of the time, because not recently they haven't been, but at least the first couple times when they were losing games at the start of the season, they only had 1 win through their first 5 games. They were at least losing in a way that would keep them in the standings up there. They could get points. They could squeeze
a lot of overtimes.
A lot of overtimes, a lot of shootouts, right? It's not a lot of shootouts. It's just a lot of extra time. And that's been falling off. I feel like they've lost their fight a little bit. And to quote Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, they say, it's unacceptable. You can't expect to play 2 periods or 1 period of hockey and expect to win a game. As good as their defense has been, we've touched on it, the offense just isn't there. And obviously, when your offense is struggling, the more opportunities you get, the more confident you get. Joe Micheletti was mentioning, when you're going to for Kaapo Kakko, when you go to the dirty areas and you're going toward the net and you start to gain a lot of that confidence. I think they all need to be doing that right now because we're not seeing that. I feel like Mika Zibanejad's not going to the net enough. I feel like he's not shooting enough. I feel like he's trying to stick handle too much. I feel like Chris Kreider, a guy who's known for going to the net, is only going to the net on the power play because they have that space. He's not trying to get in front, screen the goalie. I think that he's skating well, but he's not skating enough, if that makes it distance-wise per shift, not time-wise per shift. I think that we could see more of that. Buchnevich, on the other hand, is a guy who's improved his game. He's done that. We touched on him. He should be a guy who's going to, if he's going to move around, maybe a change of scenery will help, because it's not working clearly with his other teammates, that maybe he could help out with another line that's struggling a little bit. Anyway, with all that being said, that's pretty much all it really is. Just, it's rough, but I think that this team has the pieces to put it together moving forward. One thing I just want to ask you, Joey, though, before we wrap up with the final part of this is, do you think there have been talks that maybe Alexi Lafreniere could be sent down to the AHL? Because I know that the chances are there, but he's not burying them. And even though the chances are there, like that, he's not there just to create chances. He's there to try and score goals and help this team compete and do what he can to improve the team. So do you think that could be a possibility, and would you be for it at the same time?
I think this league is kind of spoiled in the way we value our prospects.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're prospects. They might have been
not
playing.
You're right.
They might have, yeah, they're not experienced. Why is it that you think if they're in an amateur league that they're going to immediately perform well? I think the problem is we got spoiled by Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid. But not everyone's like that, Like,
and I'd say it's more like if he wasn't a North American, he still played North American style hockey. If it was Capo Caco, on the other hand, a guy who was playing in Finland his entire life, then I can understand he needs to adjust, because sending him to the AHL would still give him the experience to play North American style hockey, even if not at the highest level.
Listen, I'm going to say it again. Jack Hughes sucked last year. So maybe he should have went down to whatever the hell their AHL counterpart is, and he would have been on the first line.
But he didn't.
Gained some confidence.
He looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, but that means he had to wait a year to be good. So now I have to wait a year for Laff to be good. It's unacceptable. I want him good now. Put him in to AHL for a little bit. They didn't use it as a learning experience, or just as an experience to be on a top line and just score, and they'll get confidence, come back. I remember Philip Hedl didn't make training camp like 1 or 2 seasons ago. He was in the AHL tearing it up, and he came in. I think someone else did that. Or maybe he went a second time down and then immediately came back like a week or two after just getting his confidence back. It doesn't have to be a punishment to go to the AHL if you don't want it to be. Not if you're a young, experienced player, like with a bright future. If you're old and injury prone, yeah, you're screwed. But if you're young and you have so much potential, you're going to be fine. If you're on the top line, someone will pick you up. Who was in AHL last year that's on the team now? Trivia question. What's the answer, Josh?
The AHL last year?
Yeah. Who was in the AHL tearing it up?
Not Shesterkin?
It was Shesterkin. Ding, ding, ding. Very good. And he was the best goalie in the AHL last year, which made us jump ahead on the schedule and bring him up to Major League Hockey. That's how this all started, because he had the chance to perform in the AHL, and he was doing amazing. And we thought it would transit to NHL, and it kind of did with that 10-2 start. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. But I also have to disagree with you at the same time. You're saying you would kind of want to see him be sent down.
No. That's not what I said. I said if it happened, I would not be against it. Yeah, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, cool with it.
Yeah, so I'd have to agree with you in the sense that I wouldn't be super upset if it happened. I think he could definitely use it. At the same time, though, we're a very short way through the season. I know that it doesn't seem that way. There, a lot of games being played already, and the standings are starting to play out a little like we expected, some of them, and even some unexpected too. But I think that he'll be fine. He's creating chances, and look, all it takes is one goal to get you going. Mika Zibanejad last year, that's what happened. No one knew he was going to go on that hot streak right away, but they know he's got upside. They know what he can do when he's on his game, when he's at his best, and he did it last year. Like you mentioned, I know we expected a lot from him this year. He had COVID to start. I know he didn't miss any games, but that's still a huge physical setback. He was cleared like a day right before the season started, or even the day the season started. So we didn't really have that much time to mentally prepare. He didn't play a lot in training camp, obviously, because he physically was not allowed to. And the players, the NHLPA wasn't letting players on COVID-19 protocol lists even just play, whether they had it or not, or whether they were in close contact or tracing or whatever. obviously he missed some time. He's still getting into it. I think Zibanejad will be fine. I think Lafreniere will be fine. And I think that Kakko, we're going to see, I think he's going to keep getting better as the season goes along. I think that this team, we mentioned it earlier in our episode that I think the Rangers are going to come back. They're going to finish strong like they did last year, because it's not how you start, it's how you finish. If it was how you started, then the Philadelphia Flyers wouldn't have been a playoff team last year, because they were complete garbage the first month of the season. They were awful, yet they finished as the top seed after the qualifying and playing round-robin round of the playoffs as the number 1 seed. Like, think about that. They got, all it takes is a streak. It takes 1 goal to get you going. It takes 1 win to get you guys going. They were playing with confidence when they had that 4-game point streak against the Sabres, the Penguins, and the Capitals combined. They played 2 games against the Penguins, but it was 4 games total. And then the last 3 games have been a little rough. The last 4 games, have been a little bit rough. But I think that we're going to see this team improve, and I think that they can get it done this year. And I'm not going to be surprised if it still takes them a game or 2, because tonight they get the Flyers. The Flyers are a very good team. They were probably most people's pick to win the East Division, because Boston wasn't supposed to get Pastrnak and Marchand back right away, and both of them recovered like that. And they've changed that team, so they're in first now. But the Flyers are still a very dangerous team, and they're a young team, and they've got some experience like the Rangers do, but I think that they're a little more accomplished. And it's going to be, this is going to be the right test for the Rangers to see if they can build off of it and get, see how they adjust. So anyway, I'm excited to see what they do going forward, despite their slow and rough start to the year. I would picture you are too, Joey. Are you not?
Hell yeah.
Of course. I don't know how you couldn't be.
How could I not?
There's really a lot to like about this team. And Dan Rosen, I remember, he's one of the reporters for NHL.com when he did his East Division predictions with, I forget who his partner was. But he said, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rangers, right? Like, they should be coming into the season and saying they're a playoff team. But I still think that they still have another year to grow in their rebuild. Next year would be the first year when I say they should be looking at it saying we're a playoff team and they have high aspirations. This year is still a bit of a rebuilding year because they brought in Lafreniere and Miller got called up. We could expect to see Vitaly Kravtsov come up at the end of the year when the KHL season's done. So, we'll see. But I think that there's definitely reason to be confident and to believe in this team that they can still get it done and make the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Let's go Rangers.
Yeah, that's just all it really is. I think we have to end this episode, though, the only way we know how, with the Rangers game coming up, Joe.
Wait, before you do, I want to ask you 2 trivia questions. As you recall, one of our shows, I asked you some trivia questions and it seemed like you liked them. So why don't I ask you 2 trivia questions?
I guess we could try that.
Okay. Question number 2, because technically that Shesterkin question was a real question. So question number 2. In the 2016 trade deadline, the Rangers traded for a captain who happened to be a brother of a player on the team. Name that player.
I'm not following your question. At the end of
2016.
Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl. Never mind. Eric Stahl.
Ding, ding. Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2016.
This one's a little bit more complicated, okay? I'm looking for 4 answers, okay?
I think I can get it. I'm confident in this one.
Okay, I believe in you, but just keep in mind, 4 answers, okay? In the 2017 to 18 season, technically the 2018. So, I remember the letter, the year they wrote the letter to the fans about the rebuild, okay? Yeah. The Rangers traded away 2 Ryans, and they traded for 2 Ryans. Not the same trade, and they weren't Ryans for Ryans or whatever, not all of them. But basically in that year, they traded away 2 Ryans and they acquired 2 Ryans. Name the Ryans, 4 Ryans.
They traded away, I know they traded away McDonough, so he's one.
That's one.
I'm just trying to think, they had Ryan Spooner at the time, correct? They had him. I'm going to say they had Ryan Spooner. And I'm going to say they traded Ryan Spooner for Ryan Strome, and they also acquired Ryan Lindgren that year. Did I get that right?
You got 4 for 4, baby. Traded away Ryan McDonough.
I was a little confused. I was like, Lindgren got traded to the Bruins in the Nash trade, not the Lightning trade.
No. So
it was the same year though. Yeah.
so it was the same. It was the same year, same
Yeah,
day.
you didn't say
That's why I said. That's why I said not the same trade because I didn't want to confuse you.
All right. Yeah.
So yeah, we got back Ryan Lindgren in the Rick Nash trade. We traded away Ryan McDonough, and we got an sorry. We traded away Ryan McDonough. Blah blah blah. That's just separate trade. We traded Ryan. We traded Rick Nash in exchange for Ryan Lindgren and Ryan Spooner. And after like having a cup of coffee with Spooner, we got him for Ryan Strome. Take that, Chiarelli. Ha. Okay.
Yeah,
so
anyway.
that's the end of our show.
Yeah, I think we have to end this episode, though, the only way we know how, Joey, and that's to make a prediction for tonight's game between the Rangers and Flyers. What do you got?
Like score or what are we talking here?
Score/outcome.
Okay, I'm going to say, since most of our games were decided by one goal, 2-1 OT, because I'd rather regulation, but we played so many overtime games. I just feel like that's where we're going. 2 because it doesn't really matter because at that point a win's a win. That's 2 points. 2-1 Rangers. Let's go.
I'm gonna be even a little more generous than this. I know that the Flyers are the Flyers, and I mentioned it's gonna be a test. But keep in mind, the Buffalo Sabres obviously have gotten better as the season's gone along. They were the first team to knock off the Flyers, and they didn't just beat the Flyers. They really beat the Flyers. I think the final in that game was like 5-1 or 5-0. That was in Philadelphia. I believe this one is too. I'm going to say that got the Sabres going. They had a rough start. And they're still having a bit of a rough start, but they put it together a little bit over time. So have the Rangers. And I think the Rangers are better. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the Rangers actually come out and flat out dominate the Flyers. And I'm going to say that they win this game 5-1. I'm going to say 5-1. And I'm going to be expecting
5-1.
5-1. It's going to be I know it's very, very far-fetched, but I'm going to go ahead and say that.
5-1.
I'm also going to say, I think we're going to get I think this is going to be the game. All right, bold prediction right here, or another bold prediction because I think 5-1 is pretty bold itself. But I think this is going to be the game where Zibanejad gets going. I think this could be it. I think that Panarin is going to have a big part of that along with Capo Caco.
Now, if you're correct, which I really hope you are, if you are correct, I really would like that. Not only would that get Zibanejad going, that would get the team going. That would be the spark because I know we smoked the Islanders in that revenge game 5-0, but I know what everyone's gonna say. Varlamov wasn't playing. It was Sorokin. He never played before. I don't really care. We beat them. That's it. But let's just say I give you that. This is Carter Hart playing, right?
Yep, that's true.
So there are no excuses, especially because the Flyers are much better than the Islanders. So if we beat a team like that by that much, holy crap, that's not just an upset. That's a statement game. That is let's go. Yep. I want that to happen.
Part of the reason.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's
go Rangers.
Let's do it. Let's go Rangers. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we have to end the show. I want to thank all of you for listening. And if you made it to this far, you're a real trooper.
Yes, sir.
And
thank you all for watching.
And we'll see you next week.